Hello, friends. This is the Alphalist podcast. I am your host, Toby. The goal of the Alphalist podcast is to empower CTOs with the info and insight they need to make the best decisions for their company. We do this by hosting top thought leaders and picking their brains for insights into technical leadership and tech trends. If you believe in the power of accumulated knowledge to accelerate growth, make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Plus, if you're an experienced CTO, you will love the discussion happening in our Slack space where over 600 CTOs are sharing insights, or visit one of our events. Just go to alphalist.com to apply. Welcome to the Alphalist podcast. I am your host, Toby, and today with me is Aviran Mordo. And Aviran Mordo is the VP of Engineering at Wix. I guess everyone knows Wix. Wix is like the crazy successful website builder, company from Israel, public on Nasdaq, over 5,000 employees, and half of them are engineers. Is that true?
Yes, about half of them are engineers.
That's great. Then I think we take the time to understand a bit more how you build your platform and what you think about platform engineering, and then about what I just, as a joke, called the Wix model after our first discussion. So the Wix's interpretation of the Spotify model and what they adopted there and what they do with their guilds internally. So maybe first off, we start with your journey, your personal journey as a nerd.
As a nerd? Oh, okay.
Well, we can also say geek if you want, if you prefer that.
That's fine. Geek, nerd, it's fine. I'm both. So I'm kind of what you would call the first computer kids. So I grew up in the 80s. So at the age of 12, my parents sent me to like this computer after school activity thingy. So I learned computers. I learned BASIC. So my first computer was like a Dragon 64. If you're old enough, you know what that is.
What's a Dragon 64? Like I know Commodore 64. I also know Commodore VC20. I don't know if you know that one. That was my first computer. What is a Dragon 64?
So it came around the same time of the Commodore and the Sinclair Spectrum, if you know. So that's
yeah.
I think the Dragon was pre-Commodore 64. But it was a nice piece of you could call it a PC. I guess it has BASIC installed. It has 32 kilobytes of memory. If you wanted to get the 64 kilobytes of memory, I have to run a special command because hey, who needs 64 kilobytes of memory, right? It's too much. So that was my first computer, and just I fell in love with it. I remember there was like the PC magazines, and they had this hexa code that you can actually copy, pages upon pages of hexa code.
You type it, right?
Yes, you type it, and of course you always make mistakes and it didn't come out right. So that was my thing. So I spent hours with it, and that's it. At the age of 12, I knew this is what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to work with this cool type of technology.
And what did you build then? Like, did you build straight away, or did you just copy mostly? Like, I have to admit that I mostly copied. Like, I think the first thing I ever typed into my VC20 was a Pong game. And I understood like nothing, to be honest, from BASIC. I just understood nothing, and it came later. How was that for you?
No, I actually programmed in BASIC. So I built things in BASIC. I experimented. I built like this demo application that was showing off the capabilities of the computers. with some sound, MIDI sound, and the graphics which you have, and it was like showing off, what the computer could do. So I was building those kind of programs. I was kind of building programs for my own, like, day-to-day issues that I wanted to arrange my wife or my father's. He had a small business, so I coded some applications to manage his schedule and stuff.
Cool.
And then, of course, I tried to copy some hexacode into the computer, which didn't really work.
And then you studied IT, or is it like you're from Israel, right? So I guess
Yes.
You joined the military at a certain point. Were you serving in that one very important secret unit, or?
Well, I studied in high school. I did study. We had like IT classes in high school, so I did that in high school. In the army, no, I wasn't in the IT. I was in other more like intelligent unit, but it's more of a reconnaissance, but not unfortunately not in the IT units. But then after the army, I went to study. I did my bachelor's degree and started to work during my studies.
Okay, cool. And you always knew like web development is what I want to do, or?
No, because the web didn't exist then, the 80s. So I kind of explored that as the web kind of took off. So I did a lot of Windows desktop applications, GIS. I wrote like the first mapping GIS software that we had in Israel. It was before Google Maps and Waze and all those cool applications. It was like a desktop, laptop GIS mapping software. And then at some point I moved to. It was like in 2000. I moved to the United States. To a startup company. I was like the third employee. It felt like an interesting adventure. Of course, like every other startup, it closed down during the internet crash in 2001. But then I moved to Lockheed Martin, which was like super interesting project to build the U.S. National Archive system. So I stayed in the U.S. for 7 years. Came back to Israel. Did my own startup thing, which of course failed, and eventually joined Wix.
Okay. And what is special about Wix, like from your personal perspective? I mean, Wix is a website builder. I guess you have crazy volumes that makes it special. What else is like the secret sauce, let's say?
So as you say, Wix is a huge platform, right? It's about 7% of the websites on the internet are running on Wix. We have like 200 million, almost 250 million website builders that are building upon our platform. So people think of Wix as just as a website builder, but it's a lot more than that, because when you have a website, you also need to sell things most of the time. So we have like the third largest e-commerce platform, and you need blogs. So we have a blogging system, and you need to schedule time. So we have a booking system. And if you are a restaurant owner, we have solutions for restaurants and for hotels and forums. So basically everything that you need to build, not just a website, but a web application. So part of that, we have transformed Wix into a web development platform. So we introduced Avelo, which is our development platform. You can build on top. Like think about the designer, the website designer now becomes an IDE. So you take your visual elements and you add code, you add JavaScript code that runs in the browser. And of course, you cannot have just browser code. So we build our own serverless infrastructure that you can actually run your code on the backend, on our backend. And you get a database and you get connected to all the APIs. So it's a very interesting platform.
So a bit like Delphi back in the days.
Yes, we actually got inspired by Delphi. I love Delphi. The GIS software I wrote, that was on top of Delphi. It was, I think, like the best environment that I worked in, like a visual environment.
I also remember that, like, having quite good memories. It was fun to build with, right? And it all was from one company, and I mean, like, maybe a bit like .NET as of today, right? You could do everything with it without necessarily leaving the paved road, right?
Yes. So speaking about the paved road, we in our journey that we've built our platform for our customers, which is in itself is very interesting because we had to solve a very interesting problem for to have like a cost-effective serverless environment. So think about it, the difficult thing about serverless is the cold startup. And we have hundreds of millions of websites. And if you give each website a server or even a container, that's hundreds of millions of containers. It's not cost effective. So the way we did that, we engineered our own serverless platform that could cold start your function in less than 100 milliseconds. And it will just shut down after you run, or if you have a continuous work, it will shut down after 5 minutes. But since the cold start is so fast, then we have no problem spinning up and bringing down a lot of servers. So it becomes very cost effective for us to offer that to our customers.
So each of your websites really runs into like a dedicated environment where you can't, or like a micro container, or
only websites that their builder wrote their own custom code.
Okay.
So if you just use our platforms and the offering that we have, then no. But if you write your own custom codes, which is a lot, we have about, I think, like I don't remember exactly, 2 or 3 million sites that have their own custom code in it. Still is a lot, but yes, it runs. Once you call your code, we dynamically load your code in our serverless platform and run it and shut it down for each request.
And what is your infra generally? Like what language do you use, like as main language?
So in the backend, we have 2 main languages. So all our code, which, let's say, the ecom platform, the blogging, the stuff, so that's mostly on the JVM, the Scala, and also a little bit of TypeScript with Node.js, and the serverless platform that we offer our customers is Node.js. You write with TypeScript, and we run it on the Node.js platform.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess otherwise, like with, I don't know, Java and Scala, it might be heavier to do that. Containerize small snippets, right?
Yes. It is heavier, but we are building that platform for our own use.
Yeah.
So this is like the path. So we identified the need for our customers, and then we looked at our own developers, which we have about 1,500 of developers. And they say, why can't we bring the same experience to our own developers? So we started in this crazy journey to improve our developers' development velocity, and then to have it very cost effective. Since the last year has been crazy. All the companies are trying to cut costs, and we said, okay, what can we do? How can we learn from the experience that we have, and how can we innovate on how people are writing software? And I think that the way the technology is right now with microservice, everybody is doing it wrong. Because if you think about it, in software development, you basically have, let's say, 3 pillars. Okay, the way that you write and design your software and in your IDE, how developers think about modeling their software and the architecting. The second pillar is how you build and deploy your artifact. Okay, and the third is how you operate and run it. And the way that, let's say, most of the industry are doing it is they have 2 ways. One is a monolith, which we all know the issues that we have with monolith. It's not all bad, right? Because with monolith, maybe the problem with monolith is how you package it and how you actually work on it on your IDE, right? Because you kind of tend to break the boundaries and deploy it as one big blob. But in terms of performance, it has the best performance that you can gain, right? Because everything runs in process. You don't do over the network calls like in microservices.
However, also in terms of velocity and engineering efficiency, it can be beneficial to have a monolith for a while at least. Like if you don't have like a, let's say, 1,500 team of engineers.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
If you're small enough, that's probably the way to go. That's the fastest way to go.
You're small enough, or you're Shopify, right?
I think that Shopify is also having a microservices. They kind of tend to break the monolith.
I think
actually, Facebook has a huge monolith, right?
Yeah. I think like many of those companies, like partly run a monolith and then rather stick to medium-sized services than really like microservices, which can actually work out, right? Or does work out for a while.
Yes, for a while, and then you tend to break those because then teams starting to step on each other's toes, and you get the deployment challenges. But so you go to microservices, which they have their own issues, right? How do you run them? What you get performance issues if you have long call chains between microservices. So none of these, and they're expensive, right? So think I'm looking at Wix, for instance. So Wix has about 3,000 microservices clusters. Okay, and like for each instance in each data center, you have to have like at least 2 or 3 instances running for fault tolerant, and multiply that by 3 or 4 full-blown data centers that we have. So even a very small microservice that does really nothing, let's say just updates configuration files or get like a very low requests, you have at least 6 to 9 instances of the same service, right? Because we're working like in active mode and stuff.
Yeah, and then sometimes the horizontal pod autoscaler is set up incorrectly, and then we all know that.
Yes. So we took a look at that, and we looked at the platform that we built for our customers, the Node platform, the serverless platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we can combine all the knowledge that we have of how to abstract things away from developers, and also solve, let's say, the cold start problem, then we can build what I call Platform-as-a-Runtime. Mm-hmm. Which basically, if you think about it, the code, what's the problem with the microservice? Why is it so expensive? Because we think, we can break it to smaller and smaller pieces, but then it costs a lot. And the reason it costs a lot because 90% of the code that a microservice actually runs, it's not the business logic code. It's all the frameworks and infrastructure that wraps your own code. Right, your gRPC endpoint, the HTTP servers, your validation libraries, everything that a company has in their own framework, that's about 90% of the code that wraps a microservice. And about 10% is the actual business logic that developers actually have to write. Again, unless you put it in a bigger service, which is now become more cost effective, but has other issues. So if we can separate those two and have, let's say, the framework, okay, all the things that you need, your JDBC connection pools, your Spring framework, your HTTP framework, your gRPC framework, validate everything, not being compiled and bundled with your service, but actually runs on its own on the cloud. Let's say it is the container, and then we can, let's say, connect the business logic to the framework, where the framework is the runtime. That's the platform. That's the runtime, and it actually calls your business logic. Then we create nano services or like which can be now linked to any. Basically, that's the shared component for everyone, right? The framework. So the simplest example that I can give is think about a microservice that has two endpoints, right? One is a REST endpoint that let's say lists products, which has a very high throughput, and one is let's say a Kafka consumer, which get a message to, I don't know, product pricing update or something. Okay, that happened a lot less frequent. But if you will build it as a microservice, which is the right way, because this is how developers think about it as domain-driven design. This is my domain. My domain is a product. This is how I want to develop this. How I want to think about it. But that's not necessarily the most efficient way to package and run it. Okay, so if I could just break those two endpoints into two nano services, each endpoint is a service, I can now attach it, because that's a very low code. The bundle size is very small, like few Ks or maybe tens of maybe hundreds of Ks, not like megabytes, because I don't compile the framework with it. It just the business logic that I need, and then attach this endpoint into the framework in runtime on my production system. Now I can also auto scale each one individually, unlike in the microservice where I have to auto scale them both at the same time, which also create a strain on the let's say the single point of failures, which are the databases and the brokers, right? There are so many connections that a database can handle. There's so many connections that a broker can handle. But with every autoscale, I open a new connection to databases and to my brokers. So now I can actually scale them as needed individually because it doesn't cost me a lot.
Okay, but just for my understanding, like let's take this product listing example. I mean, a product listing example needs to, I don't know, transfer what is received from the database into REST or into JSON then, right? And accept requests via REST, like GET requests. So it is hit. And then what does it do? Like, does it speak to the database directly, or is that then abstracted somewhere else?
No, that's abstracted in the platform as a runtime. So the runtime actually holds all the database connections. It has all the inbound and outbound connections. It's go through the platform. So your business logic doesn't really connect to the database. It's just being made from a single point in the platform itself, in the runtime. So it goes to the runtime. The runtime actually connects to the database and gives you back the results that you want.
So you somehow have like an abstraction on queries, so you can, I don't know, via GraphQL or something, like formulate a query, and then in this product listing endpoint, you talk to another abstraction, which is then the framework, which then sends the query to the database, sends it back in, let's say, GraphQL, and then transforms it into JSON, or?
Yes, correct. Exactly that. So we didn't use GraphQL. It's something that we're actually working on considering GraphQL. But remember, I told you we have this framework already available for our customers, and they can actually query. We have a Wix query. We call it WixQL, which is similar to let's say MongoDB. Okay, to the syntax of MongoDB. It's very similar. But yes, we abstract the query, we send the WixQL query, and then the platform knows how to handle that, connect to the database, and gives it the result.
So essentially, the endpoint only does the transformation then, and waits for the data from the framework endpoint. Yeah, interesting. And then you only need to scale the framework endpoint, but. I think I imagine that it's very hard to test. Like if you really take all of that complexity and want to do like an end-to-end test.
Not necessarily. Before we get to the testing, let's say about one more optimization which that gives us is because let's say the heavy lifting is the platform, is the runtime. Now I can combine multiple endpoints and attach them to the same runtime. So let's say if you think about orders and checkout, those two endpoints, and usually they talk with each other. When you do a checkout, it calls orders and do some validations, or cart and checkout. It's more appropriate. Okay. Usually there will be two microservices that need to talk via the network. Now, if I attach them to the same instance of the platform of the runtime, then now they call within the same local host. So I can either the same local host, or we actually even thinking about how to make it in the same process. So you again the performance, you save a lot of network, you save the cost, that you can scale it, you can do the affinity according to every endpoint, which other endpoints it calls to. Now, as for testing and monitoring, now we're thinking about microservice, but in reality, what people are actually monitoring and testing, they don't really care about microservices. They're testing endpoints, okay? Because you test your endpoints, so it doesn't really matter how it is spread around, as long as your chain is working. It's the same thing that we moved from a monolith to microservices. We think about, here is my server, and now here are my microservices, and here's my pets. We moved from pets to kettle, right? With autoscale, we don't actually know the machine, and now I kind of break it. I take it another step forward and break the microservice, this is, again, I break the concern of the design time in your IDE to runtime. It's different concerns. And I break it also, but in the monitoring system, it's just an endpoint. Why do you care if it runs, how your endpoints are packaged?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. It still sounds complex to me, but on the other end, like, you have 1,500 engineers, so you need to somehow make it in a way that it works out for everyone, essentially, and that people can be productive.
Yes.
When we first spoke, you mentioned that, like, you have many companies, actually, for certain domains. You even build, like, real companies with an own P&L, etc. And they produce their own tech. And that really means that you need to invest a lot into platform engineering and how you build your teams and how people communicate. And I also guess that as in all cases, your IT infrastructure really follows your org design. So I'm keen to hear, like, how you came to that approach and how you actually orchestrate your teams. How do people work together, in which team size, and what is, like, how does the Wix model look like?
Okay, so in the beginning of our conversation, I said, okay, Wix has a lot of product lines, right? Because we have the ecom platform, the blogging, one of the challenges that we had as a company as we grew and added a lot of product lines is, how do we keep running fast? Because we know that the challenge of a big company is now bureaucracy and processes, and how do you align and sync up between many people. And the way that we looked at it, we said, okay, who are the companies that run the fastest? And these are startups. So we modeled our companies. Basically, you can look at it as a collection of startups, and this is exactly why we call them companies. So every company it has their responsibility on basically a single product line. Okay, so we have the e-commerce company, and their sole responsibility is on the e-com or the store's product. And we have the booking company, which are responsible for the scheduling product, and so on and so forth. So we have about 50 of those. Now, how do you align 50 companies? So basically, you need to think about there are two types of alignments that we need to do. One is a product alignment. How does each company build their product roadmap? Which, in one hand, their mission statement is go be the best with your own product, right? So the e-com platform, the e-com company needs to be the best in the e-commerce world, right? Compete with Shopify and BigCommerce and all the other e-commerce platforms. On the other hand, they have to adhere to the Wix's strategy, because and we try to give them as much independence as possible. So each company has their own, what we call head of company. You can look at it as the CEO of a startup. And if they're big enough, they can have their own engineering manager. You can look at it as the VP engineering. And Wix, we don't have really titles, so you can call yourself whatever you want. And they can decide that for let's say for the ecom platform, we need to have our own domain and break away from Wix.com, because that will help us as an e-commerce platform to compete with Shopify. Okay, but that really doesn't go well with the Wix's strategy. Okay, because they said on one hand they have their own agenda and they need to compete. On the other hand, it doesn't really help the big Wix platform, because our strength is in our platform and the various products that we offer. So in order to align, and this is like the extreme case that I just invented, right? But in order to align decision making between the company and the corporate, let's say, just like any other startups, each company have what we call a chairman. A chairman is you can think about like the chairman is the board of directors of a company, and the chairman is someone from the Wix corporate management team that they know the Wix's overall strategy, and together the chairman and the head of company can probably reach 95% of decisions on their own. They don't have to bring decisions up the chain and have a very complex decision-making process. So they can make fast decisions. So that's on the strategy and product alignment. On the tech side, all the companies, let's say it's not just the tech, everybody that works in the company has a guild. Well, unlike the Shopify guild, the Wix's guild model was developed probably at the same time that Shopify did. It's not like we saw the Shopify paper and decided to do a guild. It kind of evolved in the same time. We didn't have a name for it. Then the Shopify paper came out, and we said, hey, it's kind of similar, resemble the things that we do. So we decided to call them also guild. But the Wix guild model, which I call the operational guild, is more than the educational guild, which is probably what most people think about when they think about guilds. So the guilds in Wix are actually involved in the day-to-day life of every. Let's take the developers. Okay, like for instance, when you are being hired to Wix, you are being hired first to the guild. Okay, it doesn't matter which company has an open position. We open a position. The guilds are basically all the people with the same skill. So let's say all the backend developers, all the frontend developers, like the backend guild, the frontend guild, QA guild. So you have been interviewed first on your professional level by guild members, regardless of where you are going to be. And once you reach a certain, you've passed, let's say, the professional level, then you are assigned to the company. Okay, so that's one thing. The guild is also responsible for the infrastructure. So it's not like every company developed their own tech stack. They all use the same stack, which the infrastructure teams are building. Now, the infrastructure teams they belong to the guild. Okay, they work solely for the guild. So you think about the guild has its own internal infrastructure company. Okay, so the guild are collecting, feedback and requirements from all the companies across the org and build the right infrastructure that would adhere to about 80 to 90% of the needs of the various companies.
Now that's interesting. So it sounds like a giant matrix with all the pros and cons. I'm not sure. So that means that, let's say I'm now the CEO of the e-commerce company that belongs to Wix, then I can actually get resources from a guild. So I asked the backend guild, can you provide me 2 engineers? Then I asked the front-end engineers or front-end guild, like, can you provide me, can I get like 2 more engineers? And then I pay the guild, or is the guild?
No, not really. You have your own let's say budget. Okay,
Yeah.
so each company has their own budget, but when they decide according to their budget to open a new position, then they go to the guild and they request, hey, I have an open position. This is my seat number, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guild starts to recruit someone for you. Okay, so you have the budget for the position. You don't ask budget from
the people
guild.
are dedicated in a dedicated way recruited then, and there's no pool of people. Well, in addition, maybe there's a pool because every once in a while people want to change careers, etc. But they recruit in a dedicated way.
Yeah, so they are being recruited by the guild standards, by guild members from not just the e-commerce company. Maybe you will be interviewed from someone from, let's say, the payment company. Mm-hmm. Okay, and once you've reached you've passed the interviews, the e-commerce company, of course, someone will be part of the interviews because you need to see if there's a personal match also with your manager. But then once you pass the tech interview, you pass the, let's say, the guild's level, then you are being assigned to the e-commerce platform.
So they essentially make sure that the standard is high enough, right?
Yes.
And make sure that you only hire excellent people. And then you still, like, you get hired, let's say, and you work for e-commerce in front end. You're still part of the guild.
Yes.
So you first get onboarded by the guild, I guess, and then you're still part of it, or?
Yes, you are part of the guild. All the onboarding, the training is being done by the guild. 20% of the time for each employee is dedicated to the guild. So even if in the roadmap and sprint plannings and everything, companies are aiming for 80% availability of their engineers, because 20% is dedicated to engineers' personal growth. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, each Thursday we have what we call the Guild Day, where people are coming and we teach them and train them on a new stack, new technologies and stuff. Once a week in a quarter, we have something that is called the Guild Week, where you get out of your company and you join a different company to do something else, to have better skills, to have different skills. You can learn something new. You can work with different teams.
But I still don't build the platform. So the platform is built by the infrastructure teams, or do I also commit to the platform every once in a while?
Yes, you can. You can go on your Guild Week. You can go and work for the platform team. So that's one of the options that you have. It is one of the most popular tracks that you can choose in the Guild Week. We have different tracks. You can contribute to open source if you want. You can prepare training sessions for the guild for other people, for the guild days, or you can work on your interview skills. So you have a lot of activities that you can do during your weeks off from your day-to-day job.
And it's not necessarily company related, but can be company related, or do you somehow make sure that it's aligned with the company?
It's not. It's actually, it is. We try to make sure you are not working on your own company's agendas, because that's your daily job, and we want to expose you to different things. So you can go work for a different company on a different product. You can work for the infrastructure team. You can do a lot of things, but the one thing that you, let's say, cannot do is work on your own company's backlog or agendas. You can promote your own company's agendas if you want to contribute to the platform. Okay, let's say there's a missing feature from the platform that your company needs, then fine, because you can go and work on the platform that's contribute to everyone else, not just your own company.
Okay. And with this, week, can you make sure that there's not too much legacy piling up, or is that a different topic? Like, is that part of your normal day-to-day job?
On your own product, that's part of your day-to-day job.
Okay, so there's no additional time reserved to get rid of tech debt and legacy?
That's on your R&D manager to give you time, because that's your product. You build it, you own it, you need to fix it, you need to make sure that you don't have a huge tech debt.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the guilds are essentially like centers of excellence for certain topics, and you form the guilds. Like the guilds are centrally managed. So there's is there like a guild head or something, or?
Yes, each guild has a guild head. Also, the guild, like I said, the guild are operational, so they are being involved in your day-to-day. Like, let's say, internal mobility. Okay, if you want to move from one company to another, you go to the guild and you consult with the guild. They get to know you. They understand, okay, what's your skill level, what you're looking for, what are companies, which other companies may fit you, and mitigate the move. The guild is also involved in your compensation. So if you go from, let's say, from a mid developer to a senior developer, the guild needs to, let's say, I wouldn't say approve, but agree. Okay, so we need to get to an agreement between your company head and the guild manager that this person actually deserves to be promoted. This way, you create alignment between the need to contribute to your company and your product, but also you need the need to contribute to the guild and be part of the community. Because if you do either or, then one of the two heads will say, well, this person doesn't contribute anything to the guild, and this is one of our expectations. And therefore, I would probably delay the promotion or raise or whatever. And the other way around, the guild say, well, this is a great engineer. Okay, he's one of our top engineers, but the company say, well, but he does not deliver. He just he's busy all the time with the guild activities or whatever, and that's also not good. So we try to get the balance between, let's say, contribute to the community and also performing your day-to-day job, which is produce products.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And let's say you have someone who's very active in the day-to-day and who now wants to get a salary increase, and this has to be approved by the guild, but the guild doesn't know so much about this person's performance. Like, how do you make sure, how do people understand, how are people able to look behind the curtains?
So it really depends on the size of the guild. So when we were small, the guilds actually knew most of the people, so that wasn't an issue. Remember, because we have the guild days, we have the guild weeks, we have the interviews. Like, the guild has a lot of interactions with people, so we get to know them, and we get the infrastructure team that work with the companies and with the developers to pair program and understand, because they need to understand the day-to-day job of a developer in order to create better infrastructure. So we have a lot of knowledge about the developers. But when you're right, once we are at a certain scale, we cannot know everybody. But we try to make sure that we know at least the senior people, because they should be the most prominent people. That's one thing. The other thing is we have something that we call the guild master. So a guild master is, let's say, you can think about them as the architect. Okay, so a guild master is a person that is trained by the guild. They know all the best practices, the frameworks and stuff. They actually work for the company. They don't work for the guild. They just being, let's say, you can call it certified by the guild as a guild master. And they are basically the ambassador of the guild inside the company. So since they work in the company, they also know the people in the company because they work with them on a daily basis, and they can also provide a feedback about a person.
Okay. And do all the guild meetings happen physically, or is there also like a virtual equivalent? Like, is there like a Slack channel for each of the guilds, or a dedicated space, or how do you make sure that people are able to align and communicate well?
So it's all of the above. So we have a dedicated Slack channels for each guild. We have, since we are globally distributed, so we have both physical guild days in, let's say, in each location. Let's say our office in Vilnius can have once or twice a month their own local guild days. We have once or twice we have like the global guild days where everybody is joining on Zoom. So we try to combine mostly both local and global and virtual ones that everybody can join.
Yeah, sounds ambitious, and I guess sometimes also stuff goes wrong, or is that like, does it all work out like perfect?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, and it's something that is constantly being evolved and constantly being evaluated. Like every year, we send surveys and we talk with people and managers and say, okay, how can the guild bring value? Does it bring value? The activities that we're doing, what would you like us to do? What is missing from you? So it's something that is very live and dynamic. We change activities, we change the way that we work according to scale, according to demands, according to the feedback that we get. So it's kind of depends on the time. Sometimes we totally screw up and change things, and things that are work that we keep doing them. But every time we ask for feedback. This is the KPI of the guild is the success of the companies. That's the only KPI that the guild has. Can the company be successful? Can our development velocity be faster? Those are the two KPIs that the guild have.
And you use, I don't know, DORA metrics, etc., to measure velocity, etc., or like how do you do that?
No, well, velocity is a very complex thing to measure. How do you measure velocity? Because different companies have different challenges. Some systems are more complicated than others. When we started to build our platform, actually, we were sitting with the CEO. This is a meeting that we have every week with our CEO, and we look at what is the development experience of developers, and we analyze code. We actually go line by line and see is this line is necessary, or can we do something else? And we see that in our estimates in the time it takes to get to production. So I'll give you an example. Okay, when we looked at the microservices, when we started that, we had a new product that we wanted to build, and the company came to the CEO and they got them an estimate. We want to develop this product. It had 5 microservices, and let's say it takes us about 3 weeks to get a new microservices that basically does nothing. It's just simple CRUD into production, and then we can start adding business logic. And the CEO looked at it and said, well, 5 microservices, 3 weeks each, and just does CRUD. So like for 6 months, I'm not going to get anything, basically. And he said, well, that's unacceptable. We need to fix this thing because it's too slow. And we were starting working with our CEO and trying, and with the companies, and trying to analyze things and how can we make things faster and build our platform with that in mind. And now, let's say after a year of working and creating, all the infrastructure, now a microservice from zero to a CRUD takes about 2 hours, and it's not just a CRUD, because the platform gives you a lot of the non-functional things that you would have to implement your own. Let's say like GDPR and encryption and logging and monitoring. Everything is built in within the platform. So the thing that you previously you had to build it on your own, which took a lot of time. Now you basically get it for free, and every new feature that we add is just basically saves you time. Like for instance, if you have a Kafka consumer and you want to do an exponential retries and backoffs, you would have to implement it on your own, and we put it in the platform, and now you don't have to do it. It saves you like 2 weeks of work. Okay, so this is constantly being evaluated what developers need, and we add that to the platform, and we basically saved about from the previous infrastructure that we have, which also give you a lot. We saved another between 50 to 80% of the time that it took for a developer to launch a new service.
Okay, that sounds great. Even though, like, I tend to be a bit skeptic on that, on all of it, because I've seen like many bigger companies from the inside as well, and we both know it's like there are always like two sides of the story. Still, one last question on guilds. We slowly have to come to the end. Quite interesting chatting to you, but quite a lot of material you already produced. Mentorship in guilds, like, is there such a concept? And how do you what do you think about mentoring?
We actually promote it. Well, this is if you think about this, is something that we tried and we didn't really nail it. So we try to promote mentorship between companies for let's say for subject experts. So we build like a portal which people could publish their expertise, and they say, okay, we are open to mentorship. If someone wants to, let's say I'm an expert in TDD. If someone wants to learn TDD, I am willing to mentor them and stuff. This one didn't quite took off, although we tried to promote it several times in a different way. What we do see that is working for us is again coming back to the guild Wix, because then you set. Okay, let me circle back a little bit. The reason why it didn't really work, because people need to be aware and request and find the time, let's say, to be mentored. Okay, not just actually the mentors, because they donate their time to mentor, but you, let's say, I want to be mentored, and I have my day-to-day work, and I have the pressure of delivering. Most of the people don't put time aside to be mentored and think about what do I need to improve. With the guild Wix system, it happens as an added benefit to the guild Wix, because then you have a dedicated time that is basically we as a company said, okay, this is your time, it's your week, you decide what you want to do, what you want to learn, and you do it hands-on. You go and join someone. Usually, a lot of the times that it's not random. You don't just pick you pick the task. You have the guild managers and guild master help you pick what tasks are available and fit for you, And we assign you, usually how that works is we assign you with a pair. Okay, so we do like pair programming, and we say, okay, if you want to also with your guild week, you want to work on a different company, let's say the payment company, but you also want to improve your testing skills, we will pair you with someone from that company that is good at testing. And on the job training, while you pair with them, you will both learn something new, but also improve your testing skills. So this has worked better for us.
Okay, interesting. I'm a big fan of mentorship, to be honest. But it's really hard to enable in such big orgs, right? And make sure that you have the right mentor. So
yes, we actually do external mentorships. So all the guild managers, they're donating their time externally via our website. So startups and CEOs and CTOs, they can come and consult with our guild managers for free.
Cool. So I book some mentoring time from you then.
I mean, sure, go to my website and just go there.
Yeah, great. A little recommendation for my listeners here. Coming to my last question, which is kind of a surprise. Your CEO, actually, Avishai, I think is his name, right?
Yes.
He actually told me about a little secret in the Wix platform. It's actually like a hidden function call on the framework service, which actually physically lets you travel back in time. It's called the time machine feature. You put like quite a lot of engineering efforts into it, and we have the chance to, through your Wix query language, submit like a little query to query you back into the year 2005, when you were working at Lockheed Martin as senior team lead, like quite young, ambitious in the US back then. And you now have the chance to whisper something into young Aviran's ears. What would it be?
Oh, wow. I would think that my best advice to myself is work on your networking skills, or beside on your networking, because I'm a tech guy. Well, now I'm on a management position, and I know the importance of network, human network, social network. But then I was all about the tech. So I did like crazy things at Lockheed, very interesting. But in actuality, I knew about 5 people in the company. Lockheed is a huge company. And I didn't care about, what's going on outside. I wasn't putting myself out there, and now that years ahead, I understand the importance of networking. Just to get more ideas, to know more opinions, to reach out to people in the industry. This is something that only once I get back to Israel and started to work at Wix, only then I noticed this is something that is missing from me. Okay, and that was actually the reason why I started to give talks in meetups, because I literally had zero network. Like, I knew nobody in the industry, really nobody. So I started to put myself on stage, which is I'm an introvert. I feel really uncomfortable to be on the stage. And I forced myself to start doing meetups and be on stage and go to conferences and talk, and with that to build a network of people. So that would be, I guess, the best advice I would give to myself, other than investing, all the buy
buy
invest in
Bitcoin,
Bitcoins and stuff. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good advice, actually. Like really leaving your comfort zone and also public speaking. It helps quite a lot also to structure your thoughts better, right? If you think about it like that. Really
yes,
good
it helps you
advice.
communicate. It helps you being a better communicator. And if you want to, again, if you go to a team lead or management role, communication skills is crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks a lot. Like really interesting episode. Learned a lot about the Wix model, as we call it from now on, and you might also call it from now on. Really insightful. Thanks a lot, Aviran. And
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon, maybe in person at a certain point.
Yeah, next time I'm in Berlin, I will give you a call.
Great. Let's do that. Have a good time.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Alphalist podcast. If you like this episode, share it with friends. I'm sure they love it too. Make sure to subscribe so you can hear deep insights into technical leadership and technology trends as they become available. Also, please tell us if there is a topic you would like to hear more about or a technical leader whose brain you would like us to pick. Alphalist is all about helping CTOs getting access to the insights they need to make the best decisions for their company. Please send us suggestions to cto@alphalist.com. Send me a message on LinkedIn or Twitter. After all, the more knowledge we bring to CTOs, the more growth we see in tech. Or, as we say on Alphalist, accumulated knowledge to accelerate growth. See you in the next episode.